ghosts me either. It's not.
Did you just
Oh,
say Microsoft Word ghosts you?
well,
He
you
did say
know, I
that.
mean, it's not responding. It's ghosting.
Yeah, mine is just being a jackass.
Yeah, that's what people that ghost. That's the same thing.
All right.
Also true.
Spinning wheel of death, ghosting. Got it. I understand now.
Yes, I funny.
You're a very
Hmm.
drool-worthy cat. What are you doing?
Well, it's
He has
slightly
no
better.
teeth.
I know.
What?
The
The
cat's just
cat.
sitting here drooling.
Oh,
He has no teeth.
No.
also true.
He looks like an owl.
He's not an owl. He's a cat.
Maybe he's a shapeshifter.
Maybe. You know,
Okay.
Taylor Swift thought that her cat was a man that shape shifted into a cat.
I'm sorry, but the more you talk about Taylor, the more I think that she just had zero brain cells, like empty
No,
head.
I think she had brain cells. I think that they were on the schizo.
Isn't she the same one that believed the Civil War didn't happen?
Um, that was neither. That was none of my exes.
No, I thought that was one of them.
I don't know what you're talking about with that one. Although I wouldn't be surprised. So you know what?
So
Okay.
alarmed.
So New Orleans.
Yes, I
Eh,
researched the wrong city because I got my weeks confused.
I
That's
didn't
okay.
research it because I've been busy with work. So I will be guesstimating.
Well, that's always good because that gives us opportunity to fact check in the background. So New
Who did
Orleans, I have to start off differently than usual, and I'm very, very sad because I can't start off with my usual, like, let's go straight to Bigfoot sightings.
I thought
Um,
you were going to start off with aliens.
No,
no, I usually start off with Bigfoot,
Bigfoot.
and somehow we twist our way over to aliens because that's just how we work. But the problem is there are no Bigfoot sightings in New Orleans that I am
No,
aware
but
of.
there are a couple of other weird creatures I just read about in New Orleans.
Is
Yes.
there
I can't pronounce them because their names are in French and I don't like the French language.
Le
So,
Big Snake?
but there's
Les,
there's a couple of weird creatures going on over there
les
besides the vampires
snicketies.
and ghosts. Mm.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, New Orleans for me is one of those cities I particularly enjoy because it's haunted. It's got vampire legends. I want to say 30% of the novels I grew, not grew. That's weird. Don't grow novels, but 30% fully of the novels I read as a growing child took place in New Orleans because I read almost exclusively vampire novels when I was an angsty teen.
Of
Not to be
course.
confused with being an angsty adult.
No, not that.
An
Yeah, anything
angsty
but that.
adult who can show movies on his forehead. It's a prominent forehead today. And so and the other side to that is your esteemed uncle lived in New Orleans for about a year and a half or so. When at one point he thought he wanted to be a teacher, and I think he was teaching up some private school down there for a short period of time.
He's a
And
T.
yeah, I think he taught literature.
Was
Oh
Um,
he?
Lord up
yeah,
in
no,
heaven.
before he got his master's in social work, and then he was married, and his wife was going to Tulane for graduate school, and so they ended up living down there. And of course, I was fascinated by that because he lived near St. Charles Avenue, which is where the vampire Lestat supposedly, or at that time in my life, I probably actually pronounced it Lestat, the vampire Lestat. Um, where he supposedly lived and everything, and Anne Rice of course was like my favorite author at that point in my life, so I was like hella jealous that he lived down there and I couldn't go down there, of course. So anyhow, so I did some looking at vampirism and its connection to New Orleans, and you can, between fictionalized vampires, real sightings, and then the creepy people, and there are a gaggle
Both
of
of them.
them down in New Orleans who think that they are vampires, but they're very odd vampires because they show up on camera, the cast shadows, they walk around during the daytime, and they don't have pointy teeth and they can't turn into bats and or wolves. So they're really crappy vampires, is
Like
what
they're
I'm coming
bad
up
at
with.
being vampires, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Mhm.
They suck on people's blood though, or my favorite ones are the people who say, actually, I'm an energy vampire. I've
You know
sucked
what? Yeah, you
energy out
are.
of
You annoy
people.
the hell out
I
of
was
me.
gonna say that just means that you're exhausting to talk to. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on.
I'm sorry. Who do we
Gonna be,
know who's like that in our real life?
what did I do with my coffee? God bless America.
Oh, that was so funny. I'm so funny.
I
That
can't
was
find my coffee. Oh, there it is.
Oh no, not the
Crisis averted.
coffee.
Ah, coffee.
Speaking of
Had-
coffee, y'all took all the damn coffee.
Not me. I
Well,
don't live there.
I got up early and drove your grandmother to the airport, so I'm absolved.
Why didn't y'all just like get her a Uber?
Because your mother didn't want her to, and then your mother made the offer at the very end of the evening last night. Well, if you're too tired, do you want me to do it? I'm like, you hate driving to the airport, so I'm gonna do it, and I would never hear the end of it.
Mm.
So anyhow,
Vampires, guys.
so
Vampires.
vampires. So there's obviously there's the fictionalized vampires that come through the Anne Rice, the novels of the Lestat novels from Anne Rice. And they take place in New Orleans. And then there's also something called Fever Dream by I believe it was George R.R. Martin wrote that book, if I remember correctly. And that was actually a very, very good novel on vampirism, because it was probably, if there were such a creature as a true vampire, it's probably more akin to what this is. And it was based on the concept that the vampires were a separate race. Really excellent novel. The vampirism in New Orleans itself, there are all sorts of wonderful stories that come through in New Orleans. There's actually travel sites that you can go to that will show you where to go and look for vampires, which sounds like a terrible idea. Sting, the musician from the Police, the lead singer from Police, he actually has a song called Moon Over Bourbon Street, which is about vampirism in New Orleans. So it's kind of an interesting thing. You
Is
know,
being a vampire just like a whole subculture in New Orleans or what? Like voodoo?
It is.
At this point, yeah.
So one of the originating vampires, lack of a better terming, the original vampire of New Orleans, his name was Bob the Builder. Actually, it was Jacques St Germain. And
oh my god, of course the last name is Saint Germain.
Of course he's French.
You know, Jacques St Germain. And of course, we're just going to say that this is a folklore vampire who may or may not have been an actual vampire, but there is, we have to say it out loud, an actual book cycle called the Germain Cycle, which is about the fictional or fictionalized version of Jacques St Germain. But he's a legendary vampire originating in the folklore of early 20th century New Orleans. In local legend, he is actually associated with the historical Count of Saint Germain, or Count de Saint Germain. According to legend, Jacques St Germain moved to New Orleans from France. No, not in France. From France, 1902, claimed to be a descendant of the Count of Saint Germain. He earned a reputation for entertaining New Orleans aristocracy with luxurious dinner parties and especially young ladies, although he never actually partook of the food served. Now, we could there's a relative that we could point to and say, well, maybe she's a vampire because she shouldn't eat her own cooking. But
okay, are we just gonna roast her a
little bit?
But can I interject about this Jacques Saint Germain real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Because I find it interesting. So you said that he claims to be a descendant of the Count Saint Germain, which, if I remember correctly, wasn't he, like a court entertainer and also an alchemist by practice? He practiced alchemy.
I think so. I'm
And I
pretty
say
sure.
so because there is a show called Castlevania on Netflix, which obviously is fictional, but like they use a lot of historical reference characters, and the Count Saint Germain is one of them. And in the show, obviously, he gets involved with vampires, and he is also an alchemist. So it'd be interesting if a descendant of the Count Saint Germain also ended up being a vampire.
Let me look
True.
it up.
I think you are accurate though.
Yes, yeah, he was an adventurer, inventor, an alchemist, a pianist, a violinist, and an amateur composer.
Sounds like some vampire stuff to me.
Yeah, honestly, if you're a vampire, that sounds exactly like what you would do. Like that's what I would
Right.
do if I was a vampire.
Well, okay, so with Jacques St Germain, because of his wealth and his background that he claimed, and the mystery part of it, rumors had circulated about him throughout the New Orleans high society and the French Quarter in particular. And he was described as being a womanizer who would go to the French Quarter nightly to meet new young women, which that wasn't all that difficult to do if you had any sort of money in your pocket. But one night, screams were heard coming from Germain's house. And after he brought a woman home from the bar, and the woman jumped from a second-story window of his house, telling bystanders that she'd been attacked by her host, who had seized her and bitten her on the neck. The police were actually called, and there's court records of this. And they searched his house. They found bloodstains and wine bottles filled with human blood.
Okay, so
And
was he a
Saint
vampire?
Germain was missing. The woman died later at the charity hospital in New Orleans. So he's now, he's up to the idea of an urban legend. There have been supposed sightings and attacks that have been attributed to him by locals. He also has, of course, inspired cocktails, which is interesting. It was actually on the show Mysteries Decoded in season 1. It was called the episode was called Vampires of New Orleans. The thing about it is, I mean, obviously he's not the only supposed vampire in New Orleans history. The thing that attracted me to this particular story is it happened in the 1900s. So,
Right.
it's not something going back into the lore of the 1700s or something like that.
Yeah, it's not like super, super long ago.
Right. And there's court records.
Right.
And I like the idea of court records because, in order to be admitted into evidence in a police investigation, they have to have some sort of evidence.
Well, not so
And
much
wine
that
bottles
depth,
filled with
but
blood definitely is a thing. And it is also true, by the way, much like his ancestor, he was rumored not to age. Like he had been around for a while, I mean, I don't look my age, but I have aged,
Right.
So
Well, did you
I
see
like
about
that.
the convent girls with the coffin caskets?
Yes.
That didn't make a lot of sense. Well, there's a lot of conflicting stories about this, to be honest with you. I've like read 3 different accounts of it. One of them was on a New Orleans site that was like, 5 legends that are more scary than any New Orleans ghost story. And one of them was talking about the convent girls, because so they would go to this convent after they had been like engaged to somebody but prior to marrying them, and they would have a this chest that was coffin shaped filled with their belongings, and they came from France, and they started noticing their belongings going missing, and like they thought it was a demonic presence, so they sealed the coffins, put them in the attic, and then they like left them. And then let me check this real quick because I took a screenshot of it, so I should have it. Because I don't remember the date. And they had somebody bless the attic so that they could, sleep better at night, I guess, or whatever. And then 2 reporters, in 1978, 2 reporters broke into the attic, and then they were found decapitated and drained of blood.
Oh,
Like next day. And
Good.
then yeah, right. And then I looked it up again just to see like any other stories about it. And there's so many different like stories, like because they originally arrived in like 1728, and some of them, like some people think they were vampires because the accounts are that their skin was so pale. In fact, their skin quickly burned and blistered within minutes of being under the hot subtropical sun. Some thought they were ghosts sent to haunt the city. Some thought they were smuggling vampires in their little coffin-shaped caskets. Why do I keep saying that? Coffin-shaped chests. And that's where, huh?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And so it was just like it's so odd because there are so many ways that like so many different stories for how they got there. The trunks aren't big enough to fit a whole body. Stop dinging. Um, like the trunks aren't big enough to fit a body, so it doesn't make sense that they were smuggling vampires in. But I do think it's odd because the convent I think is abandoned now, and they had like these caskets were sealed in the attic, and two reporters broke in and they were found decapitated and drained of blood. Like that's weird.
Jesus.
Cool.
Um, what was I gonna say? I mean, them smuggling. I could see it being them smuggling vampires, and I would assume vampires can, in some way, make themselves either smaller or just like casually chop themselves into bits in order to fit into a smaller casket and then reanimate themselves.
Well, yeah, if you take
Yeah.
on a mystical concept of vampires.
Well, not even mystical. I mean, we don't know if they were like, if they truly exist and are a separate race, they might have regenerative abilities similar to that of a lizard.
Good.
Oh God, we're
And
being
and
attacked by
apparently
reptilians.
apparently well, it makes sense actually. Apparently the nuns began to fear that the girls were not who or what they claimed to be, so they barred the third floor where all of their like stuff was or was supposed to be, using nails and stuff blessed by the Pope himself.
Good, good. I'm a fan.
Yes.
Um,
I don't know.
well, I mean, the thing with New Orleans on, that level, the vampire level, ghosts, literally, not vampire, ghosts, in New Orleans, supposedly New Orleans is the most haunted city in all of the United States of America. And when you look up, I mean, beyond the fact that they have like ghost and vampire tours, of course, every major city in the country has some variation of the above. But when it's the most haunted places in New Orleans, they actually split it into haunted bars, haunted hotels, haunted cemeteries, haunted buildings.
Yeah, they got so
Right.
much fun stuff they gotta allocate.
Right. There's 5 cemeteries, Lafayette being the most well known, that supposedly
Right.
is, so haunted. Anything to do with Marie, and I'm going to screw up her name, La Rue, La Rue, La
The Voodoo
Laurie,
Queen?
the Voodoo Queen, is automatically on the list. I mean, her mansion is a supposedly hella haunted place. I
As I would
actually,
imagine a Voodoo Queen would have a haunted house.
yes,
Right.
definitely not haunted, for sale, never been touched by human hands. Um, definitely not an exorcism performed in this house. But the other side to that was one of the restaurants, and I actually went to the restaurant. It's called Muriel's. It's in the French Quarter. First of all, if you ever get the opportunity to go to the French Quarter, take it. Even if you're not into French people, because it is really, it's spectacular architecturally, but even in the daytime when you're walking through New Orleans and you see, like some of the wrought iron work in the gates and the gargoyling, the way that it was designed, it's very much an old world city. And when you get into the French Quarter and the sun starts going down, you're like, yeah, I 100% see why people think that there's a something or anything here.
Right.
obviously the werewolf legend of America, I mean, and this is more than the Beast of Bray Road kind of stuff, or the Dogman of Michigan, which is a very recent phenomenon, and it is more likely that those things are conflated with Bigfoot sightings. But the Rou
There you go.
Garou,
There's your tie-in.
but the Rou Garou, the werewolf
Right.
of New Orleans, I mean, the legends of werewolves in New Orleans go back hundreds of years. Most of which are consisting of actual curses, voodoo curses that are put on people that transforms them into a beast. And then the only way that they can break the cycle for themselves is to infect another person, or frankly, kill the voodoo, priest or priestess that put it on them. So
Right. Well, that
very
was how the
interesting.
original werewolf stories began. If I
I was
remember
gonna say,
correctly.
I was about to
Curses.
say that.
Like they weren't like a natural creature, they were a cursed creature.
Yeah,
Correct.
I remember reading or seeing something after, honestly, like a lot of this has been stirring up memories of different types of media that I've seen, but I remember seeing something about how like the original like werewolf was, or one of the versions of the original werewolf was some kind of voodoo curse or a like witch's curse or something along those lines. Now, where exactly they originated, I honestly forget. But
I think in France, if
I was gonna say it's either France or Romania. I don't
I was
remember.
gonna say it sounds like either a French or Romanian thing. It could be either one.
well, because I'm saying France because a memory starts. I have a memory of
Well,
a
we have
Loup Garou in 1600s France,
but
I think 1600s, who like supposedly ate like 37 children in the French Alps area, if I remember right. And obviously the word Rou Garou is
is in French.
right, it's a
French.
pigeonized version of Loup Garou.
So there is a werewolf in Greek mythology, and his name is very close to like lichen. But I
Well,
am
that's
not
where the
sure.
word lycanthropy comes from.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they also emerged in early Nordic folklore as well. Like if we want to go all the way back.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's also a good point at that there had to, I mean, even if they don't exist nowadays, if so many different areas have so many different records and legends of wolfmen, then,
I mean,
maybe they were
somehow.
things to worry about back then.
well, yeah, I mean, back in the old days, when we talk about the Nordic people, that was
It's
explained
also in
away
the
as
epic
being
of
berserkers.
it's also
Yeah.
in the epic of Gilgamesh. There's a werewolf in there.
I don't know who Gilgamesh is.
Gilgamesh, that's
Yeah.
um
Old.
yeah,
An
that's biblical.
old story.
Um yeah, well, I would say, I mean, if you're going to do that, obviously everyone's favorite werewolf of modern times, Remus Lupin. I mean, he takes his name from Remus and Romulus, which
Okay,
was
so
Roman.
Moon over there. Yeah.
Well, but weren't they raised by bears?
No, they were raised by wolves,
No
supposedly.
wolves. Oh, I actually got to go to their hut in Rome when I was there. Really cool.
But yeah, I mean, the werewolf as ravager, and again, people explain away the werewolf mythology as being, from the French Alps, where wolves were quite present, and maybe, a lean winter and a bad spring would bring about wolf attacks on humans, and it wasn't the thing. But to Al's point, I mean, again, it's a little hard to look at simultaneous, cities, countries, societies kind of growing these legends, and then also bringing them with them when they come to the new world. It's kind of like, to me, it's the Sicilian evil eye, the Malaud, which is actually not, when you perform the Malaud, you're not actually giving somebody the evil eye. The idea is you're warding off the evil eye. But the concept of warding as a tool to keep evil from you, I mean, that, again, biblical in its concepts, its original concepts, but it's in every society. Every culture has something. And the same is true with vampires. I mean, our very first episode of this podcast, we actually we took on vampirism as a quantity, because we were talking about the difference of cryptids and ghosts and all these different things. And are you truly willing to say that every single one of these instances is mistaken identity, missing things, liars?
Well, that's my argument for dragons
crazy
too.
people.
Every single culture's got a dragon. Where are the dragons?
Al, what did you say? I missed that.
I said, or crazy people.
Oh, crazy, a lunatic. You know, I mean, the same is true. New Orleans, I mean, I had started to say a while back that I'd been to Muriel's, and I didn't know about Muriel's being one of the, you know, officially haunted restaurants in New Orleans. But when I went in there, I actually was having a conversation with this guy named Rudy Beck, who used to work at WIS with me. And I actually said to him, I don't like this place. Something's off. And I went back and I you know, I looked it up when we got back from the trip, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And I was just reading on there's a travel site now, because everything has, you know, 50,000 sites. There's a travel site that actually documents the hauntings in New Orleans, and to make it to their list, you have to have multiple documented sightings and or experiences. And the thing at Muriel's is kind of like the bar in St. Augustine's. It's the, oh, you like that drink, woo, you know, and away it goes without you. And again, apparently there's a bar seat at, I think it's at Muriel's. It's at one of the bars down there anyways, where nobody's allowed to sit in it because it's, you know, John's seat. And John gets pissy if living people sit in his seat.
Get that. Sit there and that you have an aneurysm.
Yeah. Well, what would he do if a vampire sits in the seat? They're neither dead nor undead. Was he gonna do that?
I don't know. Can you haunt a vampire?
I don't know. Can you possess a vampire?
Imagine a vampire fucks over. Sorry, but a ghost, and then that ghost, being petty, just haunts and annoys that vampire for all of eternity.
That sounds like a good book story. Somebody write
that. That would be a hilarious book story.
Either quit it, stop.
Be like sprinkling garlic over all of their like.
Yeah.
So...
I don't understand. Why do all these humans reek of garlic?
They just keep like busting open the blinds when they're trying to sleep.
Flicks the curtain so it like goes just for a second and then it's gone, and the vampires keep like, who's doing
this? Tom, you asshole. Cut it out.
Oh, that's too funny. That would be an excellent book. Here, we just wrote the book for you, but none of us can write books properly, so.
Well, I'm gonna say I can't write a book, so.
Every time I try writing a book, the plot's awesome, the idea is awesome, and it takes 7 pages.
Yeah, exactly. I
want to get to the climax. Done.
Well, I realized I actually just describe things in endless friggin' detail. I had to make up a myth for I took a mythology class last semester of my senior year. I had to make up I wrote my little myth, and it's supposed to be like a 4-page myth, and it was like 17 pages. And I was like, damn, this is all just like description. Like, I should probably stop.
No, I'm the opposite. I get bored with the details, and I'm like, let's just get to the action. Oh, it's over.
And there it goes.
My issue with writing books is I'm not good at dialogue.
Yeah, you know what I have found from writing like scripts, there's a talent to writing dialogues, which I do not.
I'm good at possess. The dialogue. So if we combined our 3 little brain cells, we could write a book.
So as you can see, the countdown to doom has begun.
A while ago.
Yeah, like we're down just below 3 or 4 minutes. So I mean, what I'm gonna say, obviously, New Orleans had to be on this list because it is literally the most haunted city in America. I've never had an experience there. I did go on a ghost tour when I went with WIS. But that would have required both Sonia Pearson and Hannah Ware being quiet long enough for a ghost to actually get a word in edgewise. I've been trying to moan for the last 10 minutes, but this teenager won't shut up. But I think that it would have been downright hilarious to have that happen. But I would also say not as much, because we also took them kayaking in the bayous, and they saw one small alligator and they freaked up.
You know what?
I
If
would
I was
not
in the bayous
picture
of Louisiana,
teenagers
like
kayaking in the bayou.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that was a particular person. David Morris, beautiful idea. Because
can't say I'm
he
surprised by that one.
he was like, "Oh, this is gonna be so much fun." That's also where I took the airboat ride, and I have
I
decided
have it on good authority that those kind of suck.
I
it's
love
really
airboat
loud.
rides.
It's really
It's
loud.
fun.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed. But when you would turn and you know, like you go in and you're basically smoking the banditing around the corners, and you know that you're rolling over like snakes and alligators as you're going.
But
Oh,
it's
sorry, I
fun.
said the S word.
I one of the books I read recently, the main characters, they were kind of on opposite sides of this war, and they called each other the songbird and the serpent. And like when I was doing my little posts for it, I had to use like a picture of like a snake, and it was just an outline, and I still got freaked out. Like there was like a
Oh, God.
spike in my heart rate by like 50 points.
So
It's just a
you're
snake.
gonna get mad at me when I overlay Alex and I with both like talking snakes at this point of the
I will literally
podcast.
boycott our own podcast. I will, and I'm the one with the social media password, so I'll just shut it all down. I'll be like, nope, goodbye.
All right,
No.
so our next trip, Megan, is to Salem
Oh, good.
for hopefully I'm actually I think I'm going to delay release and or do an early release, however it's going to work out, so that it actually goes up on Halloween. I actually have a good friend from college who lives right outside of Salem, and I will tell you unequivocally, they hate Halloween. The people who live in Salem hate Halloween.
I believe it.
Because they just get descended on by every droog and moron in all of America. You know, people who are like, I'm a witch, but they dress like, you know, teenage sexy witch kind of stuff with the purple pink hair and stuff. And like, and all the real witches in Salem are probably like, I would abacadabra boo you so hard right now, like Avada Kedavra your ass.
Frog.
Goodbye.
But anyways, speaking of goodbyes, we're less than a minute, so we're racing to the end. So we'll catch up in Salem, Massachusetts. That was not a dab, that was me flying. I just thought I'd say that.
Hell was that?
It's running, taking off.
I fly.
Roller coaster. I thought you were.
Oh, wait, that's your grandmother. She's on Alaskan Airlines. Flap harder. Flap harder.
No, that'd be Spirit. Come on now.
The Spirit is like, good God, man. Where did you get these? They're like, I'm sitting in a more comfortable chair. This is a student chair. All right. We will see you in Salem. Bye. No.